My name was supposed to be Tim. My mother had a dream just before I was born. And the dream, they told her the baby is going to be a boy, and I want you to name him Socrates. That's how I got the name. And I hated that name. Because if they called you a philosopher, and you're supposed, I was the dumbest one in my class.
May have been the dumbest in academics, but he's got common sense that is beyond anyone else. But most people know you as Odge.
Yeah.
And so tell them how you got that.
The reason these conchs, you know what a conch is? They're people from Key West. They came from Nassau. They fled Nassau and they went into Key West. And that's what they call a conch, because they love conch, you know, those big shells, those conch shells, that's all they ate. That's why they called them conchs. And the conchs didn't like Greeks, because the Greeks were divers, and the conchs were, they sponged a different way. They sponged with offhand, they call it. They'd be in a skiff, and they'd catch sharks and get the livers out of the shark and make oil out of it and throw that oil on the water where it was a ripple, and it would slick calm, look like glass. And they could see the sponges. They from the top of the water, you know, in the dinghies, with long poles, they would get the sponges. That's how they sponged down in Key West.
But didn't the conchs, weren't the conchs, word got out that they were supposed to come up or ambush the Greek spongers?
Yeah, they did. They had problems with them. They didn't want the Greeks down there with hard hats getting their sponges. Mm-hmm. So my brother had to go in a Coast Guard plane, and they had flags made like a pentacle, you know, and they had a piece of 2x4 about that long, and it had drilled a hole in it, and my brother would write a note in Greek, "Get out of there, because the conchs got guns, they'll shoot you. They don't want you in their territory." And he went on a Coast Guard plane and flew over the Greek boats and dropped those buoys and those messages, so they could get out of the way from Key West. Because the Greeks didn't carry guns. They didn't have a gun on a boat.
Pretty wild.
Yeah.
But so one of the ladies, the conchs, lived down the street from him, and apparently couldn't pronounce Socrates, maybe, or Scotty. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Most of his family calls him Scotty. But she named him Odge, and so it's stuck. So tell them about how you never said your name, your full name.
My name is Socrates George Cretekos. I was born in the house on 455 East Tarpon Avenue in Tarpon Springs. I was born in 1923. My daddy was a sponge merchant. People in Tarpon Springs that were gathering sponges didn't know how to process them, you know. And they finally got some Greek people here from up north to teach them how to process the sponges, because that's all they used to bathe with in Europe is a sponge. And these people that found the sponges here didn't know how to even process to get the sponge ready to use. They used to string them on long lines, and they'd hang them on the boat, on top of the boat, let them dry, and then they'd bring them into the sponge exchange, and they'd have an auction. Then they had the sponges, they had to wet them, they had to size them and grade them, and they'd put them in round rings like this, and the and the buyers would see the sponges and go through them, and they had people that was sorting the sponges out, and there was a number 1, number 2, and number 3, the grades. The number 1 was normally the best sponge, you know. It's perfectly round. There's no cuts in it or anything like this. And that's what the sponge exchange was for there, you know, to string. But there was people there working at the sponge exchange that used to grade the sponges, and it had black people that had long needles about this long and a piece of string tied on it, and they'd put the sponges on that needle and push it on that string and make a round loop. And the buyers could go through those sponges on that loop and see if the grade was right and if that's what they wanted to buy. And if it was too big of a sponge, they used to cut them. They made a cut out of them. If the sponge was this big around, they'd make 4 sponges out of it. But they used to call those cuts. And years ago, up north, they had plaster walls, and they had to wash those walls down every day. I mean, every year, and repaint them. And they used the sponge to wash the walls. That's why we had a good business up north. And 90% of the sponges were used in Chicago and New York.
When you guys were in high school, what school did you attend? I mean, in elementary, where was that in Tarpon? Because it wasn't.
It was on Eagle Street. You know, the main street going down, alternate 19.
Yeah.
You know where the hall is?
Yeah.
The Greek Hall.
That's where the school was.
That's where the school was. It was 3 stories high. It was 3 stories high. No elevator, steps going up and down. And that one building had 6th grade, 5th grade, and 4th grade in it. I told you I rode my bike 14 miles to Lake Com. They used to call it Lake Com, and because it was good fresh water. It wasn't Lake Tarpon, you know.
It was clear.
Blackish. It was clear water, you know.
Yeah.
And we used to camp there. We were Boy Scouts, you know, and put tents up. And one time, this guy came by, and we were running around with shorts on, and underwear, and his daughter used to walk by our camp, you know. He said, if I catch y'all without any clothes on again, you're gonna be dead. And when she told me that, I guarantee you, everybody put their clothes on. And that old cracker meant it too.
Do you know any stories about the psychiatric hospital, Anclo?
Anclo Manor.
I know it.
It was Sunset. Wasn't it called Sunset?
No, it was called something else. Paul Saunders had it and made a metal thing out of it, a hospital where goofy ones, he just put goofy people in there. And but it was a resort. It was for the Yankees. When it come down here in the wintertime, it was a hotel.
Yeah, it was good.
It had a balcony on the outside, and that's where they held their dances and stuff. And on this balcony, they had a big ceiling on top of it, and it was wide open, you know. That's where we had our junior, senior prom.
Have you ever seen pictures of that? Oh, it was pretty amazing.
It was a beautiful place.
Well, what kind of stores were in downtown Tarpon at the time?
It was.
It was a lot.
It was two shoe places there, factless. Each brother had a place, my daddy built a store down there, and he had Greek goods from Greece, you know, feta cheese and all that kind of stuff. And he had that store there for a while, and they had a hardware store. And the Fackless had two. It was two Fackless brothers. They had two shoe shops.
Oh, well, when did they go together?
Huh?
Facklesses. When did they go?
After the war.
Oh. And it's still around. And the Tarpon store. What about Boehner drugstore?
Oh, that was fine. Yeah.
That was still around when I was.
Yeah, Miss Boehner had a cash register. It was about this wide. It had a bunch of numbers on it, you know. You'd push it like a typewriter, you know. And you go there and get an ice cream cone for 5 cents.
Yep.
Hey, and you give her 25 cents, and she'd give you 30 cents back for a 5-cent ice cream cone.
How about your war experience? You want to share that?
What's that?
Your war experience.
Tell the story about going out to California on the train.
Oh, it took us 4 days to get through Texas in a true train. We got to New Orleans, and we had a night at New Orleans, and we had a good time there. And we got on the train in New Orleans, and started to go through Texas. It took 2 days to get across Texas with a train, and we had to get out of the train and stop the train. We'd do calisthenics and exercise, and then we got back on the train again, and it took us to Riverside, California. That's where I went to basic training.
And then what?
Then I went overseas.
And you were in the second day at Normandy, right?
Yeah.
Explain that one. Or describe what that was like.
That was rough. We were in England, and we were getting ready for the invasion. It hit France. Omaha Beach was the beach I landed on. It was called Omaha Beach, but I don't know what the hell it was. But it was a beach, all right. But it was a cliff high as those pine trees. And if it wasn't for the paratroopers that landed ahead of us up on the mainland and dropped down rope ladders, we would have never got up the beach was here, and as high as those pine trees was the land, you know. And we had a hard time to get up there. And half of the boys got seasick. We're going across the channel, and we had a barge, that landing craft, that we went down a rope ladder to the landing craft, and people were vomiting, and you couldn't stand up. It was vomit all over the boat, and it was going back and forth like that. And some guys fell between the landing craft and the big ship, and it crushed them. It was a big mess.
And they drowned.
Yeah.
They had all their gear on.
They had too much gear on. I told them to throw everything away except the bandoliers, 2 bandoliers with your shells in it, and hand grenades, and that's it. No canteen. You don't know if you're going to drink water. No any other kind of stuff. Bedrolls. We used to have 2 blankets. We would roll up in a shelter half and put them on our back. Take those off, because you don't know if you're going to sleep that night. You're going to drown with them on there. I was from Florida, and I knew something about swimming and about the water. The poor Yankee boys, they didn't know nothing. They went around water. They didn't know nothing about it. And
So do you remember
some of those Yankee boys never got seasick either. They've never been on the water and they never got seasick.
And do you remember climbing up the rope ladder?
Yeah.
But it's fascinating.
If it wasn't for
Yeah.
the paratroopers
They
that
wouldn't know.
landed
No.
ahead, we would have never made it.
They were sitting ducks, all of them.
Yeah.
Horrible. They even made them do it. But it's the generation that gave us our freedom. For sure. And then after you got up,
You know, look, our captain, he was a captain, he was from West Point. He was a captain, and you know how old he was? 25 years old.
wow.
Everybody under him was 19 years old, 18 years old to 25. They didn't want any older than 25. They think too well, you know. One under 25, he wants to be a hero. He thinks of being a hero. But a guy 25 and over, he don't think about that. He thinks about going home.
Good point.
So it was rough, but I made it.
Yep.
Omaha Beach.
What about the Battle of the Bulge?
Oh,
You were also in that, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, that was bad. The Germans didn't take any prisoners during the Battle of the Bulge, and if they captured anybody, if they surrendered, they put a white flag up and they surrendered. They wouldn't take prisoners, they'd shoot them. I got an SS ring in there with Himmler's name in it, and the captain I took it away from. I got a dress dagger for what they used to use for when they had parties and stuff. It's got the swastika on it, and it's got printed on the blade, "Alles für Deutschland," always for Germany. It was a dress dagger.
How'd you end up with that?
Huh?
How'd you end up with that?
I got that from a Frenchman that was in France.
Oh.
He had it.
Oh, you didn't take it off a
No,
a
I took
German?
I took the ring off of a German. We got prisoners. It's got Himmler's name. He was an SS. They had a different ring. They had a skull, you know, that thing with the cross skulls with a skull on it, and it's got his name in there engraved inside, and Himmler's name. That's a special troop. They didn't take any prisoner.
And what about when you were liberating the Jewish people in?
Oh, that was in Munich.
And that was in Munich?
Huh?
That was in Munich?
Yeah. It was It was in.
What? God, everybody's been there. Our neighbors have been there.
Auschwitz?
Yeah, Auschwitz.
You were liberating people from Auschwitz?
Yeah.
Please tell me.
See, I got a picture of a friend of mine. It was a medic, and it says displaced persons on the thing, and that was where the displaced persons we had these people that we freed from different countries, and we made them put their flag or their country, because the Germans took people from Czechoslovakia, different places, and they made the Autobahn. The Autobahn was made out of concrete, and that's the first runway. First time I saw a jet airplane without a propeller, the Germans had it was a fighter plane. They were smart. They had some good equipment. I'll tell you. They were fighting all the time, and Hitler, he was invading countries right and left, and that's how they made the Autobahn of slave labor. And I got a picture of a friend, like I told you, a friend of mine. It's got displaced persons on it. We used to have to get all those people and take them back to their country. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, it definitely was. So then you get back to Tarpon. What was it like then after the war?
That was good. I had a good time. I didn't have to work. I didn't work at all.
I thought you worked at Uncle George's packing house.
I did it after I got through playing.
Oh. He did not sponge dive, but he was part of the industry. That part we didn't. He worked for my uncle that had a packing house. So tell us about the pier.
The pier.
Yeah, the pier, which most people today call Sunset Beach. We call it the pier. They grew up.
It was a dance floor out there. It was a big dance floor, and it was no air conditioning. They had windows, and the water would. If the wind was blowing out of the east, out of the west, it was okay, but it was no air conditioning. They had big weddings out there and dances and all that kind of stuff, and then this boy that leased it from the city, the boy set it on fire. I got a picture of me looking at, I was on the fire department and I'm watching it burn. I got a picture right there,
Oh yeah, it's a great picture. It's a really good picture.
He's
not doing it. Yeah, there he is sitting there and places burning down. A lot of good that did, but it was all wood. It was nothing that's going to save it. But it was the neatest place ever. I remember actually as a little girl going out there, and it was just so cool. It was all Australian pines all over the whole thing. It was fabulous.
Carol, you've seen some changes, I'm sure. You're born here.
Mm-hmm. Lots of changes.
Like what?
Mostly just the development out at Howard Park. There was few when we were growing up, but not as excessive as it is now. The development that's on the the south side of whatever the road's called. Growing up here, I don't know any names of roads. It's all landmarks. I'm finally learning the name of roads when I came back. But it was just so much smaller. And your parents would know everything before you ever got home, which was what most of the young kids didn't like.
When you used to walk to school, if it started raining, and if somebody's house was over there, you went on their porch, and you knew who lived there.
Yeah, everybody knew everybody.
Everybody knew everybody. Time's running away.